You can stand on a stage, bathed in purple and blue light, and be completely invisible. For 10 years, that was my job. I was the rhythm, the harmony, the steady hand on the fretboard that made the melody shine. But I was never the melody. I was the second name in a duo, the quiet sister in the shadow of the brilliant brother. I learned to live in that shadow. I furnished it, made it comfortable. I convinced myself that the reflected light was enough to live by. Until the day the light went out, and I was left alone, in the dark, with 10,000 pairs of eyes staring into my soul, waiting for a song I didn't think I had the voice to sing.
That feeling of being a supporting character in your own life is a story so many of us know. Today we're hearing from Clara Vance, a musician from Austin, Texas, who had to find her own voice after the world she knew came crashing down. I'm Susan Bentley, and this is Unbroken Women, where we share the stories of women who found the strength to step into the spotlight and claim their own narrative.
Our world was a beat-up Ford Econoline van that always smelled faintly of stale coffee and gasoline. It was tangled cables, dog-eared road maps, and the constant low hum of the highway. Vance and Vance. That was us. My brother, Leo, was the sun, a supernova of charisma and raw, untamed talent. He wrote lyrics on crumpled napkins that could make you weep. His voice was a beautiful, ragged thing that caught in your throat. And I was the moon. My job was to reflect his light, to give it shape. I was the one who booked the gigs, balanced the books, tunes the guitars. I wrote the intricate guitar parts that wove around his voice, the harmonies that lifted his choruses into the stratosphere. Our life was a rhythm I knew by heart. Wake up in a cheap motel, drive for 6 hours, sound check, play the show, sell some t-shirts, pack up, and do it all again. It was a good life, I thought. We were making it. People loved Leo. They would rush the stage after a show, their hands outstretched towards him, their eyes shining. I'd stand by the merch table, smiling politely, a ghost in a band t-shirt, counting out change. I told myself I didn't want the attention, that I was the quiet one, the steady one. It was my role, and I played it perfectly. The wait wasn't a sudden thing. It was a slow accumulation, like dust settling in a silent room. It was the weight of Leo's moods, which dictated the climate of our entire world. It was the weight of 100 journalists asking me, "So what's it like working with your brother?" But never, "What was your inspiration for that guitar solo?" I was the ampersand, a necessary piece of grammar, but not a word in my own right. The weight was a constant, low, dissonant chord playing in my chest, a hum of anxiety that told me to stay small, stay quiet, don't mess up, don't take up too much space. My ideas for songs were always just interesting thoughts, until Leo decided to use a piece of one and then it became his. My identity was so wrapped up in being his sister, his bandmate, his support system, that I didn't even know who Clara was without him. I was just the other Vance. The whispers started in the quiet moments. Usually late at night, in a hotel room, after the ringing in my ears from the amplifiers had finally faded. I'd be lying there, staring at the textured ceiling, and a thought would drift in, uninvited. What if I wrote a whole song just for me? What would it sound like? I had a small notebook hidden in the bottom of my suitcase, filled with scribbled lines and chord progressions that felt too quiet, too personal, too me. They didn't have Leo's fiery angst. They were softer, more questioning. Sometimes during a sound check in an empty theater, when Leo was outside on the phone, I'd step up to his microphone, just for a second. The metal was always cool against my lips. I'd hum a few bars of one of my secret melodies into it, and the sound of my own voice, amplified and filling that vast empty space, was both terrifying and thrilling. It felt like a transgression, like I was trying on someone else's clothes that might just fit a little too perfectly. The South by Southwest Festival. It was the biggest show of our lives, a slot on the main outdoor stage, right at sunset. This was it, the moment every indie band dreams of. 10,000 people were packed onto the lawn, a sea of faces buzzing with anticipation. We could hear their roar from our little trailer backstage. It sounded like the ocean. But inside the trailer, there was a different kind of storm. Leo was pacing, his face pale and tight. He'd had a call with his agent. A major label was scouting him. Him, not us. They wanted him as a solo act. The conversation escalated so fast. I was trying to be the calm one, the mediator, as always. Leo, we can talk about this after the set. People are waiting. He turned on me, his eyes blazing with a kind of frantic cruelty I'd never seen before. You don't get it, do you, Claire? They don't want you. They never wanted you. You're just the backup, the sister I have to drag along. The words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe. A stage manager poked her head in. Vance and Vance, 5 minutes? Leo just laughed. A bitter, ugly sound. He grabbed his jacket. You want the spotlight so bad? It's all yours. And he walked out. Not towards the stage, but out the back of the trailer into the Austin night. He was just gone. The stage manager looked at me, her eyes wide with panic. Where is he? You're on in 2 minutes. My blood turned to ice. My guitar felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My first thought was a desperate, childish prayer. He'll come back. He's just blowing off steam. He'll walk back in any second and say it was a joke. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard, I thought I might be sick. I could hear the MC on stage, his voice booming through the speakers. Give it up for Vance and Vance. The roar of the crowd was deafening. It felt like a wave about to crash over me and pull me under. I just stood there, paralyzed in the echoing silence of the trailer. I thought about what they would think, what everyone would think, that we were unprofessional, that I was nothing without him, that his words were true. I imagined walking out there alone, this small, pale girl with her unkempt hair, and trying to explain. The humiliation was a physical thing, a hot flush that spread from my chest to my face. Fear was a cold knot in my stomach. What would I do? Who was I without him? For 10 years, every professional decision, every creative impulse had been filtered through the lens of us. Now there was just me, and I was terrified. The stage manager was pleading with me now, her voice a frantic whisper. You have to go out there. Say something. Anything. But I couldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, a statue of pure, unadulterated panic. Somehow they pushed me onto the stage. The heat from the lights was blinding. The noise from the crowd was a physical pressure against my skin. I stumbled to the center mic, the one Leo was supposed to be standing at. It was too high for me. My guitar was still strapped to my body, a dead weight. I opened my mouth to speak, to apologize, to explain that there'd been an emergency, but no sound came out, just a dry, pathetic click. The crowd's cheers faltered, turning into a confused murmur. A few people started to boo. The sound cut through me, sharper than any of Leo's insults. I could feel 10,000 pairs of eyes on me, dissecting me, judging me. My vision started to tunnel. The faces blurred into a single monstrous entity. My knees buckled. I gripped the mic stand to keep from falling, and that's when the first sob broke free. A raw, ugly sound that was amplified across the entire festival ground. I stood there, bathed in a single white spotlight, and just broke. Tears streamed down my face, hot and shameful. I couldn't stop them. It wasn't just about Leo leaving. It was about everything. 10 years of silence, of shrinking myself, of living in the background. It all came pouring out in one mortifying public collapse. My old life didn't just end, it died right there, on that stage, in front of everyone. I spent the next 2 days in my hotel room, not answering calls from our manager, our agent, or my parents. The viral clips of my breakdown were everywhere. The headlines were brutal. I just lay in the dark, replaying every humiliating second. On the third day, something shifted. The shame was still there, a thick, suffocating blanket, but underneath it, a tiny ember of anger started to glow. Anger at Rio for his cruelty, anger at the world for only seeing me as an accessory, and most of all, a deep, quiet anger at myself for letting it happen for so long. Our manager finally got through to me. He told me the rest of the tour was canceled, that we owed venues thousands in breach of contract fees. And in that moment, a decision formed in my mind. It was quiet, but it was absolute. It felt like stepping off a cliff. "No," I said, my voice hoarse from crying. "The tour isn't canceled. I'll do it. I'll play the shows." He was silent for a long moment. "Claire, are you sure?" I wasn't sure of anything, but I knew I couldn't go back. I had to go forward, alone. Before I could face a ticketed venue, I knew I had to face a microphone again. I found an open mic night at a dive bar on the outskirts of town. The air inside was thick with the smell of stale beer and desperation. I signed my name on the list, just Claire, not Vance. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the pen. When my name was called, I walked to the tiny, makeshift stage. The floor was sticky under my worn-out boots. There were maybe 10 people in the audience, and none of them were paying attention. It was, in its own way, more terrifying than the festival. This was intimate. There was no spectacle to hide behind. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and played one of the secret songs from my hidden notebook. My voice was a thin, trembling thing. My fingers fumbled on the strings. It was messy. It was flawed. It was nothing like the polished perfection I was used to creating with Leo. But it was all mine. When I finished, there was a beat of silence. Then, one person, a woman at the bar, turned and clapped. Just once. It was the loudest, most beautiful sound I had ever heard. It was enough. The first official show of my solo tour was in a small club in Tulsa. Only 30 people showed up. The reviews were vicious. One blogger wrote, "Vance without Vance is just a pale imitation, a whisper where there used to be a roar." Another called my set an evening of apologetic folk music. The words stung, reinforcing every doubt I had about myself. But the real battle came when Leo finally called. He'd heard what I was doing. He wasn't apologetic, he was furious. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Claire?" He spat down the line, his voice laced with venom. "You're using my name, my reputation. You're singing our songs." "They're my songs too," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I wrote the music for half of them." "No one cares about the music. They care about the voice, the star," he yelled. "You're trying to erase me. You're trying to steal my career, my life, after I built it for us." His words were a twisting knife. Part of me, the part that had been trained to please him for a decade, wanted to apologize, to cancel everything, to crawl back into my shadow. I felt so isolated. Our own parents were calling me, confused, asking me to just make peace with your brother. It felt like the entire world was telling me I had no right to a voice, that my only value was in supporting his. Every night, in another anonymous motel room, the war raged inside me. The loneliness was a crushing weight. I missed the easy rhythm of life on the road with Leo, even the bad parts. It was a familiar pain, a comfortable cage. Self-doubt was my constant companion. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every missed note, every lukewarm applause, every critical review. Leo's words would echo in my head. "You're just the backup." Was he right? Was I just a fraud playing dress-up in a musician's clothes? The temptation to quit was overwhelming. I could just go home. I could call Leo, beg for his forgiveness, and maybe, just maybe, he'd take me back. I could go back to being the quiet harmony, the steady rhythm. It would be easier. It would hurt less than this constant grinding effort of trying to be someone I wasn't sure I was capable of being. I felt completely and utterly lost. The breaking point came in Des Moines. It was a rainy Tuesday night. I was supposed to play a decent-sized club, a place Vance and Vance had sold out a year before. I arrived for sound check, and the club owner met me at the door. He had this pitying look on his face. He told me he was canceling the show. Ticket sales were abysmal. "Look, kid," he said, not unkindly, "it's nothing personal, but people want the star, not the sister." He handed me a check for a fraction of my guarantee. That was it, the final confirmation of everything I feared. I drove to the cheapest motel I could find, the rain hammering against my windshield. I sat on the edge of the stiff bed, the damp chill seeping into my bones, and I looked at my guitar. It looked like a stranger. I had nothing left. No band, no tour, no money, no confidence. I was done. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over Leo's number. I was going to call him. I was going to surrender. I was going to tell him he was right. I was nothing without him. I was defeated. My phone buzzed with a notification before I could make the call. It was a message on my fledgling solo artist's social media page. I almost ignored it, but something made me look. The profile picture was a selfie of a young girl, maybe 14, with braces and bright, hopeful eyes. Her message was short. "Hi, Claire. My name is Maya. I saw the video from the festival. I was so sad for you, but then I found the song you played at that open mic night. I think it's called Faded Ink. It's so beautiful. It made me pick up my dad's old guitar that's been sitting in our attic. I'm learning to play it because of you. Thank you." I read the message 3 times. Maya. She wasn't listening for a star. She wasn't comparing me to my brother. She had just heard my song, my quiet, secret little song, and it had meant something to her. It was a tiny flicker of light in an overwhelming darkness, but it was enough. It reminded me that a single voice, even a quiet one, can be heard. I deleted Leo's number from my call screen. I didn't go home. I sold the van and bought a smaller, more reliable car. I canceled the rest of the club tour and started booking my own shows. Coffee shops, libraries, house concerts, farmers markets, anywhere that would have me. I played for 10 people in a bookstore in Nebraska. I played for a handful of college students in a dorm common room in Wisconsin. It was humbling. It was slow, but something was changing. I wasn't performing anymore. I was sharing. I started talking to the audiences, telling them the stories behind my songs. I was no longer hiding behind my guitar. With every show, my voice got a little stronger, a little more confident. I wasn't trying to be Leo. I wasn't trying to fill his silence. I was just being Claire. I started writing more, the songs pouring out of me. They were about being small and being seen and being stronger than you think. They were my story. And people, slowly but surely, started to listen. About a year later, I was playing a small sold-out theater in Chicago, my own show. As I stood on stage, looking out at the sea of faces, I felt a sense of peace I had never known. There was no panic, no dissonant chord in my chest, just a quiet, steady hum of belonging. These people were here for me, for my words, for my music. I no longer needed anyone else's light to shine. I realized I had my own. It wasn't the blazing fire of a rock star. It was something quieter, warmer, and more enduring. I wasn't the and or the other. I was just Claire. And for the first time in my life, that was more than enough. I was whole. Sometimes I think about that girl, the one standing by the merch table, forcing a smile. The girl who thought her only value was in the harmony she provided for someone else's melody. I want to go back and tell her that she was never the second fiddle. She was the whole orchestra, the strings and the woodwinds and the percussion, just waiting for her cue. I want to tell her that the most terrifying silence of her life would be the thing that finally allowed her to hear her own music.
Thank you, Clara, for sharing that incredibly powerful journey from harmony to melody. Her story is a beautiful reminder that our own voice is worth fighting for. What part of Clara's story resonated with you? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Unbroken Women for more stories of resilience. Click here to watch another of our inspiring testimonies. Until next time, be well.